Welcome back to the Big 3 Review. My name is Weekly Shonen, and we have a very special... Welcome back to the Big 3 Reviews. My name is Weekly Shonen, and today we have a bit of a different setup. I've kind of relocated for the weekend. I'm currently being held hostage, so we're going to get this review done really quickly before my taker decides to finish me off. Today we'll be starting out with One Piece 1035, which starts out with a cover page. I guess we're getting a new cover series on Germa 66 and how they got out of Whole Cake Island, which is going to be cool because if we see Jinbei in that, I think that'll be the first time that we've actually seen a character that's appeared in the cover series and in the main story. And that's also, I know, that'll be a fun fact for the One Piece community one day, eventually. The extra point is good. Sanji got King all the way the fuck out of here. Queen, sorry. But it doesn't matter now because he's gone. And I guess Oda was listening to us talk all this shit about the battles being too quick because he made sure to tell us in the box that this is a victory for Sanji. The battle's over. Don't expect anything more. And, you know, obviously these are, awakened zones, so they can easily get back up. But, you know, at least for the time being, he's out of this battle. And seeing as though we got maybe like 5 minutes or 4 minutes by now till the battle should be over, that should be long enough to have the zones, you know, out for the remainder of at least the raid, you know. It's pretty cool to see a little victory box. I've never seen that in One Piece. I've only ever seen that in like Love is War, so it was kind of funny to read that, even though it wasn't supposed to be like a gag or anything like that. It was just supposed to be informational, but just I could not help but look at that and smile. I forgot to mention it last week, but Oda made it clear for us that Sanji and Mice do get along, and I don't know if this was supposed to be a Ratatouille reference at all, and I just only got it now, but I'm glad that he was able to incorporate the flashback panel in there because, you know, we all looked at the flashback, Sanji's flashback of him messing with the mouse and stuff, so it's good to see that come full circle and him hand it off to the woman who he just saved. So everything, I'm pretty sure all of Sanji's stories has been told. The only thing left for him to do at this point is to basically to confront any one of his Germa siblings or whatever, and, you know, just approach them with his new aura, or just how he is around them now, as how he's accepted himself, rejected his family, but, you know, basically he's at peace. I think that's the only thing left for Sanji to do. We cut back to Zoro and King, who share the title of this chapter, and King's mask has finally been removed. And I won't take too long to bask in the one correct prediction that I've made my entire time recording reviews, but King is dark-skinned, and, you know, I know a lot of readers enjoy that even more, so props to Oda for including that. But, you know, just aside from that, I just think it was really smart the way that he did this, because he, you know, may have been defeated, but King has proven to be an important character, and not just as the right hand of Kaido, but just for existing. This next part I'll be reading off of my notes and kind of cheating, but only because I took a little time to type this out, and I think this is rather important to discuss, since the community has been going quite wild on Twitter talking about Robin and her skin color. So I just think it's funny the way that Oda incorporated this, because the problem that people have with making characters black isn't always about racism. A lot of the times, what I've noticed often is that companies and even artists themselves, like it could just be people who are just illustrators as well, you know, they kind of shoehorn minorities into prominent roles just for the sake of incorporating them. And although the the endearment or the intention is always pure, it doesn't always feel good. And what I mean by that is, like, when you make an entire character's identity revolve around their race, their gender, their sexuality, the audience feels like they're kind of forced to appreciate this character just for existing rather than appreciating a well-written character. And people just don't like that. From what I've seen on the internet and, you know, in real life with real people who I've talked to, and myself too, a lot of the times I don't care that these shonen protagonists are Japanese or about their culture even. I'm more so, I care about how they're loners or just the things that they go through specifically that I can relate to, rather than, you know, the things that they are that I'm supposed to relate to. I feel like being represented is very important, but more so represented as a human being going through a specific struggle, not as, you know, I've never really felt personally connected to anyone because they look like me or because they were from the place that I was, but just because they went through the same shit as me rather than anything. Like, over anything, I care about, you know, connecting struggles rather than looks or something like that. I just feel like a lot of these stories go, either you get it or you don't. Sorry. Whereas shonen goes, if you don't get it, here's a flashback. let me show you why this person's important, and maybe that'll help. But King, he occupies a nice gray area. That, I think, is what shonen is all about. I feel like, you care about a character who is like a loner, or has gone through a death, or is like depressed, or whatever thing they're trying to overcome. It usually never has to do with them culturally. It usually just has to do with how well the mangaka can portray that emotion, or portray the thing that they're trying to overcome. And that, I think, is the most important thing. So the way that Oda was able to spin this, it's kind of funny, because King literally is just important because he's the last of his race. It's not because he's dark skinned, it's not because he's Lunarian specifically, it's that he's part of this specific race who they tried to wipe out of existence. So in a way, you are supposed to care about King for just existing, but not because he's dark skinned. The fact that he's dark skinned is like, I think Oda kind of towing the line and just being like, I understand where you people are coming from, here's how you do this. And just goes to show him and his team of editors are just really good at what they do. And so you appreciate it more and more. And I think that's the most important part of King, really, because up until then, he was a guy with a mask on. There was a Stan Lee interview recently that came out, and he mentioned that it was accidental that Spider-Man was fully covered. Technically, you can't tell what Spider-Man's race is, which means that any race can be Spider-Man. It doesn't matter who's underneath the suit. And he says that was probably the greatest part about Spider-Man for him, and though it was unintentional, it was something that he grew to appreciate over time. So I guess King had the same thing, because up until now, we just knew that he can control fire, and then very recently we learned that he was Lunarian. We didn't know anything about his race or anything like that. His specific race was Lunarian, but we didn't know anything about like his skin color or like what he would actually look like underneath the mask. So to have that reveal at the end of all this, it's kind of important, and definitely should not be overlooked. And King is always, even if he's defeated now, he's already served his importance throughout the story, and he'll continue to like help us, reveal some mysteries. But I think for now we're pretty satisfied. So good job to the team of One Piece. Anyway, the more obvious prediction that I made, I wouldn't really count it as a prediction because I think we all saw it coming. That's why it's obvious. But it was that once the mask came off, we would get a backstory, and it was only one page, but they gave us a lot to talk about. So you got Kaido looking like Roger, a young king formerly known as Arbor, and some important context for their relationship, I believe. So King wasn't just Kaido's right hand from the beginning. He wasn't just a person that became king because he was the highest ranking, or because he became the right hand through like this leveling up system, or just he was actually the first person that Kaido recruited. And it's looks very similar to how Roger recruited Rayleigh and how Luffy recruited Zoro. Even the smile is exactly the same. So obviously there's something here about Kaido once holding the title of Joy Boy, or not the title itself, or just holding that will to himself. And I don't believe that means Kaido used to be Joy Boy, or he was his generation's Joy Boy. I believe that just means that it just goes to show that will can be carried out through many people. It doesn't always have to be one person, but obviously you see that with Luffy and Sabo. But maybe he does hold the essence of Joy Boy, but now as a gatekeeper, because he does mention that Luffy couldn't become Joy Boy either, which means that he obviously didn't see himself as Joy Boy once learning about the history, but at least he embraced that side. And he may be depressed and drunk and suicidal now, but at some point he was a very happy-go-lucky pirate. So I think he realized at some point it wasn't him, but he needs to look out for him. And maybe that came sometime before Marineford. Like, I'm only going to speculate that Kaido became depressed after Marineford, and that's a huge jump. Now, it could easily have been right after Odin, but I think that encounter with Shanks and Odin's last words are, they're going to continue to play more and more of a role in the story as it goes on. They're going to become more important. So yeah, I think that was pretty cool that we kind of now have a kind of a prep for Kaido's backstory, because once we get his backstory and we see how happy he was and just how he was as a cabin boy or whatever, or like a ship's apprentice, then it's gonna be hard to hate that man. Constant clashes we got throughout this chapter, they just make me think, this was really the climax of the battle. You know, I only mention that because I know a lot of people have been kind of complaining about the length of these battles in Wano. And I think mainly it's just because we have a lot of characters to focus on this arc. Obviously, we've had 1v1s with each of the Straw Hats in battles, in arcs, and we've gotten to focus on them more. But there's just so much more happening than just these battles. So Oda's just trying to get his idea out there of like, hey, here's what the battle's supposed to look like. Here are some clashes. Here's like a page or two of what these clashes are going to look like. We already know that the anime is going to expand upon them, but because as manga readers, we know how the flow of these battles go. We just need the reveals. We just need the information that they're going to bring us, and we can just satisfy our hype with these like reveals, like the mask reveal or the backstory, and then let the anime feed our hunger for, you know, the actual battle appetite. So not at all complaining. I'm perfectly fine with the way that these battles are flowing, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to be able to reread these things, and though they may seem like they're going to go by fast, they're still going to be page turners. It's not going to feel like we read back on these things and these battles were almost a single page long and we could have easily missed them. You know, these are whole chapters dedicated to them. Maybe we're expecting 2 or 3. Who knows how many to expect, but I'm fine with the prep happening separated, you know, as we get like Zoro some half, and then some Sanji on the other half, and then a third person, and then when it comes time to actually finish those battles, it's 1 chapter long. I think that's a really good structure. So that's pretty much it. I just also like to give a shout out to the very talented One Piece community because got some great color pages this week, and you know, to go along with King's reveal, a lot of fire and whatnot. I do want to quickly mention though, the word Imperial was used, and I wonder if that is gonna lean us into Star Wars territory, because there were 3 different dragon moves, and maybe that's just a translation thing, because I don't know Japanese, but maybe that was a translation error. But I feel like the mention of Imperial or some type of, you know, imperialistic society, when you collab that with the Lunarian thing, it's possible that they were once viewed as the bad guys, and maybe not by the bad guys. Maybe they were just so powerful of a force and they were conquerors. This is me totally spin-foiling it right now, but I think the use of Imperial, or just the use of a higher class, something like that, that type of term to associate with King, especially since he does talk down on Zoro as his race, one of your kind, and Zoro has to kind of bring him back to the ground. I feel like that's going to play a huge part in what the Lunarians were and just what these moon people were like, you know? So yeah, moving on to My Hero 338. Didn't have much to offer this week in terms of, you know, other than teases for the upcoming battle, but we did get a conclusion to this scene finally, and I'm not mad. I'm perfectly fine with how this is all playing out. I'm just kind of over it. So, you know, it was good to see more of Class 1A just kind of struggling with, you know, the situation at hand, and to see Ida come back out. But the words only really add to the tension to the scene. They don't, you know, add to the story overall. Like, we already know how tight of a unit they are and how they're going to react and stuff like that. But, you know, that isn't to say that that's bad. I just, you know, like I said last week, this is all necessary. I just mean from the perspective of a reviewer, there's not much to talk about here. I'm glad that Horikoshi took the time to explain why Aoyama didn't just blow up after, you know, revealing that he was a traitor. He clarified that it's not actually a two-way line, and it's only available as a communication device, or this quirk factor is only available as a communication device whenever AFO decides to tap in. So one of 2 things is happening. Either AFO just decided, or has not decided to talk to Aoyama again yet, or he's lost that quirk that lets him search for him and contact him. I doubt that that's the second one now, because I feel like as long as you have your quirk factor in someone else, you're always going to have a line to them. You don't need a specific quirk to connect to that, but I'm really glad that that was clarified now, because that really needed to happen. That was the last, like I said last week, that was the only thing that could have become a plot hole, and it didn't. We got that cleaned up really quickly. It's good to see Aizawa again too, take accountability for the actions of his students, pop in real quick via FaceTime. I'm glad that he tied up Aoyama and his family, or I guess put the earmuffs on him, because that means that he won't be able to get caught in a lie, since we established this chapter that AFO just can tell when someone's lying to him. So that was good to see. As for what his plan is, no idea. This is shonen shit where they're gonna throw us at the last second. You know, we can theorize all we want on what exactly or how he's going to utilize Aoyama, and it's good that he decided to utilize him instead of, you know, letting the detective who Sugauchi, I forget his name, but instead of letting the detective take him away, it was just like, no, we can actually we can see this through. So again, things that we knew were going to happen, but the only thing we're not going to really be sure about is just how they're going to go about trying to trick AFO, because that's a tricky dude. So if this is actually going to play a factor, and if this is not just going to be a dead end where it's going to show, or it's going to prove to show how much, you know, more intelligent AFO is, then that means we're going to have to go through like quite the chess match of what if he does this, so we have to plan for that. You know, it's going to be a bunch of that, and probably just going to get that shit in the form of a flashback once it's revealed anyway. So fine with it. The Avengers assemble for the second to last page, or one of the last pages of the chapter. There's a cool little panel there. It's great that they didn't incorporate Invisible Girl in the actual like big spread, but they incorporated her before. This is very smart paneling choice. I think this is probably the best panel or the best page of the chapter. Wait. No. This one was. Yeah. This face that Deku gives reminds me of the entrance exam moment where he trips over his shoe. Yeah, onward. Finally. Jujutsu Kaisen 169. We got another teaser for the movie dropping next week. Can't wait to see this thing. I still haven't copped tickets though. And again, there's not much to cover here except for Takada's whole ass existence and stealing the show here. We got some amazing poses, some great joke reactions, and 1,000 Years of Death reference. But other than that, moved too quickly to really analyze anything. You know, last week I talked about how this guy Hazanoki was not going to have any more limbs or body parts to blow up, but like an idiot, I forgot that reverse curse technique exists. So shout out to Megumi for bringing that up, kind of clarifying that whole thing for him. Or for me. A lot of genital action this week for some reason, or almost in Reggie's case. Takaba actually did go off. He quite literally gave Hazanoki a whole spanking for a little bit. A little more than a spanking, but you know, shout out to the Smash Bros community, because that's literally the first thing I thought of. Yeah, the chapter pretty much ends after that. You know, we get that shining moment from him. We get the clarification that they're going to team up and try to take these two dudes down, and attempt number 2 at round number 1 of Megumi versus Register. So hopefully, I don't mind seeing a tough fight for Megumi here, so long as he wins. That's all I really care about. And that's pretty much it, honestly. There's not much more to talk about. The biggest thing this week was One Piece. Everything else was, you know, really good chapters anyway. Just, again, as a reviewer, they just kind of flow quickly. So that's pretty much all I got. My name is Weekly Shonen, and yeah, I hope you have a great week. Yeah, this is coming out tomorrow on Sunday, so this is coming out today. Sorry. We are official here, so I hope you all have a great week. See you on Friday.
Go crazy, go crazy, go crazy, no crazy, no crazy, no crazy,